What is the most serious crime you've gotten away with? Back in high school I was a broke boy. Shawties weren't messing with me because I wasn't rocking designer like the dope boys. Then I came up with an idea that would change all of that. My uncle had a printing company and sometimes I would go help him out, and that one day I couldn't help but notice that he had been printing doctor's notes. I stole a few stacks. I was fortunate enough to have a color laserjet printer and a scanner at the time, so I swiftly got to work. The biggest challenge was to forge the serial number and the stamp. After a week of hard work and headaches, I managed to crack the serial number algorithm. I was already fascinated with cracking games back then. The stamps were easier. I scanned a few original doctor's notes I had and hand-carved a wooden mold from the scans for the stamps. The signature was the easiest. I just practiced a few from legitimate medical professionals. I eventually gathered enough courage to test it out for real. I skipped out on one day of school and gave my fake doctor's note to my teacher and everything went perfectly. In a very short amount of time, everyone was interested in buying, so I started selling. I would hear whispers in the halls from people saying that someone is selling legit doctor's notes. Word traveled quickly. Then I got worried that I might get caught. And so I sold to dealers, instead of dealing alone. These guys were usually the bullies in the schools, gangster folk. Most kids would quiver at the mere sight of these boys. I gave them an offer, 50% profit for them from each doctor's note. They just needed to fill in the name and date. Within what to do with it all. For a 16-year-old, it was incredible. I spoiled myself so much, I would throw money around my friends and they would collect it from the ground. I'd pay for everything around, drinks, snacks, fast food, anything, you name it. I even bought them clothing and expensive shoes just because I could. I bought myself a motorbike and a car, and I started buying substances and drinking on weekends, partying like crazy. Like a fool, I even began paying for high-class escorts to attend these parties. I started doing this when I was in my second year in high school and went on until my fourth and final year. My process was to steal a few stacks from my uncle, forge the serial number and signature, and then sell in bulk to these dealers. Rinse and repeat for 2 years straight. I always felt like I was going to get caught one day, but I loved the thrill so I didn't stop. I had to lie somehow to my parents, so even though I had more money than I ever needed, I still asked for money at home so my parents wouldn't get suspicious. For the bigger things that I bought like a motorbike and a car, I bought them illegally and never brought them home. How would a broke 16-year-old justify a $1,000 motorbike to my dad? For the smaller things like buying myself a PlayStation and games, I lied that my friends had lent it to me. I almost got caught. I got so spoiled that one time I didn't show up at school for 3 weeks straight. I started playing World of Warcraft and I would go out from home and directly go to the gaming center where I played for 10 hours each day. For that much time of absence, the teacher required a phone call from the parents. An older guy from the gaming center with a grumpy voice agreed to help me and call the teacher and pretend to be my father on the phone. It went well until my teacher got worried about me and called my home to ask my parents how I was doing. I remember going home from the gaming center and my parents sat me and asked me where I had been and said do not lie. They brought me to the teacher and the director of the school and we had a long talk about my behavior. I got off easy though, with a few days in detention and that my dad or mom would have to personally visit my teacher to justify any kind of absence for me from that point on. The ironic thing was that after that stunt I pulled I couldn't use the doctor's notes for me, I only sold them from that point on. The only reason I never got caught was because this time I didn't get the chance to give my teacher the doctor's note. Since he had called my house before I got the chance to do so. After high school, my parents sent me to a university in Italy and that was the end. I thought of doing it there, but Italy was not the third world country I lived in before, and everything was computerized, and not so easily falsifiable of course even if I hacked the system somehow, which to me seemed impossible. The hardest part was getting used to being broke again and relying on my parents' money entirely after I burned through my stash.